There is a place on Earth where the ground itself hides secrets older than civilization, a land so vast and frozen that even today large portions remain untouched. In this place, bones rise from the ice, not buried but preserved as if time stopped mid-breath. For centuries, explorers, traders, and scientists have traveled into Siberia and returned with stories that sound impossible. Stories of enormous creatures, ancient humans, and discoveries that challenged everything we thought we knew about our past. But some findings did not lead to celebration. They led to silence. Because what was uncovered beneath the Siberian permafrost hinted at something far older and far more unsettling than history is willing to accept. In the year 1578, within a remote monastery near Arkhangelsk in northern Russia, a written record quietly documented a discovery that would only be understood centuries later. The entry described an enormous bone unearthed from the frozen ground, a find so unusual that it stood apart from anything the monks had encountered before. At the time, there was no scientific framework to interpret such a discovery, no concept of extinct megafauna or prehistoric ecosystems, and so the object was viewed through a lens of mystery and uncertainty. The sheer scale of the bone suggested that it belonged to a creature far larger than any known animal, prompting speculation that ranged from unknown beasts to remnants of a distant, almost mythical past. What seemed like an isolated curiosity at the time would eventually become one of the earliest recorded hints that Siberia was hiding something extraordinary beneath its surface. As the 17th century unfolded, reports like this began to appear with increasing frequency, not just in isolated writings, but in the experiences of traders and explorers who traveled across Siberia's vast and unforgiving landscape. These individuals encountered massive tusks protruding from riverbanks, enormous bones embedded in eroded cliffs, and fragments of creatures that seemed too large to comprehend. What made these discoveries even more remarkable was their abundance. They were not rare anomalies discovered once in a lifetime, but recurring features of the land itself, appearing often enough to become part of daily observation. Mammoth ivory, though not yet understood as such, became a valuable resource, collected and traded across long distances, integrating these ancient remains into human economies long before their true origin was recognized. For the indigenous peoples of Siberia, these discoveries were not perplexing in the same way. Among the Yakut and other local groups, there existed long-standing beliefs that these massive remains belonged to creatures that lived beneath the earth, moving through unseen tunnels in the frozen ground. According to their traditions, these beings could not survive in the open air, and when they were accidentally exposed, they perished, leaving their bodies to be discovered by humans. These interpretations, while often dismissed as myth by outsiders, were deeply rooted in repeated observation of real events. Frozen bodies did emerge from the earth, often appearing suddenly after landslides or thawing soil, reinforcing the idea that something alive had once existed just below the surface. In 1618, an English scholar named Richard James traveled through parts of Russia and documented these accounts with unusual attention to detail. Rather than dismissing local explanations, he recorded the terminology used by indigenous communities and described the physical characteristics of the remains they encountered. His writings provide one of the earliest attempts to bridge observation and interpretation, capturing a moment when European understanding of the natural world was still evolving. He noted the immense size of the bones and the persistence of local beliefs, preserving a record that would later help historians and scientists piece together how these discoveries were first perceived. What truly set Siberia apart from other regions, however, was not simply the presence of these remains, but the extraordinary condition in which they were found. In most parts of the world, ancient bones are reduced to fossils, stripped of organic material, and transformed over time into mineralized remnants. In Siberia, the extreme cold of the permafrost created entirely different conditions. Bodies were preserved, with flesh still intact, skin still visible, and hair, often clinging to the surface. In some cases, internal organs remained, offering a level of detail that blurred the line between past and present. These were not distant, abstract traces of life, but tangible, almost immediate connections to creatures that had walked the earth tens of thousands of years ago. By the 18th century, as scientific inquiry became more structured, Russian expeditions began to approach these discoveries with a new sense of purpose. Rather than treating them as curiosities, researchers started to document, excavate, and analyze entire specimens. Mammoths were carefully uncovered, sometimes transported across vast distances to be studied in greater detail. These efforts marked a turning point, transforming scattered observations into systematic investigation. For the first time, it became possible to reconstruct not just individual animals, but entire ecosystems, using the preserved remains as direct evidence of a world that had long since disappeared. As these discoveries accumulated, one realization became increasingly difficult to ignore. Siberia was not merely a remote and inhospitable region at the edge of the known world. It was something far more significant, a vast, frozen archive that had been quietly preserving the history of life for tens of thousands of years. Beneath its surface lay not only the remains of massive creatures, but also the context of their existence, the environment they lived in, and the interactions they may have had with early humans. It was a place where time had slowed, where the past had not fully faded, and where each new discovery had the potential to reshape our understanding of history itself. In August 2012, along the remote coastline of Sopochnaya Karga in northern Siberia, a discovery began in the most unexpected way, when a young boy noticed unusual shapes protruding from the frozen ground. What initially appeared to be just another exposed remnant quickly drew the attention of scientists, leading to a full excavation led by Professor Alexei Tikhonov of the Zoological Institute in St. Petersburg. As the layers of permafrost were carefully removed, what emerged was not just a skeleton, but a remarkably preserved mammoth, later named Genya, whose body had remained largely intact despite being buried for tens of thousands of years. The find immediately stood out, even in a region known for exceptional preservation, because it offered a rare opportunity to examine Ice Age life with extraordinary clarity, from muscle structure to fur and even traces of soft tissue. At first, the focus of the research was on understanding the mammoth itself, its age, its environment, and the conditions that had allowed it to remain so well preserved. Every detail was meticulously documented, from the position of its limbs to the composition of the surrounding soil, all of which contributed to reconstructing the moment of its death. However, as researchers continued their examination, something began to stand out, not in the overall form of the animal, but in the subtle markings present on its tusks and bones. These markings did not resemble natural damage caused by scavengers or environmental pressure. Instead, they appeared deliberate, precise, and controlled, suggesting the use of tools. The realization that these marks were likely made by humans changed the entire significance of the discovery. It meant that at some point in the distant past, people had encountered this massive animal and interacted with it in a way that left physical evidence behind. Whether the mammoth had been hunted, scavenged, or processed after death, the implication was clear. Humans were present in this region at a time and in conditions that had previously been considered unlikely. This raised immediate questions about who these people were, how they survived, and what kind of knowledge or tools they possessed to operate in such an extreme environment. Further support for this idea emerged in 2016, when archaeologist Vladimir Petulko and his team conducted research at another Siberian site, uncovering the remains of a mammoth that had clearly been butchered by humans. This specimen was dated to around 45000 years ago, significantly earlier than many previous estimates for sustained human activity in Arctic Siberia. The evidence included cut marks on bones, patterns consistent with systematic processing, and the presence of tools, all pointing toward organized hunting or scavenging behavior. This was not a sluchina interaction or a one-time event, but part of a broader pattern of human activity in the region. The implications of these findings extend far beyond the individual discoveries themselves. They suggest that humans were not only capable of reaching these northern latitudes much earlier than previously believed, but that they were able to establish a functional presence there. Surviving in such an environment requires more than basic shelter and fire. It demands knowledge of animal behavior, the ability to coordinate within groups, and the physical strength to endure extreme cold and long periods of scarcity. Hunting a mammoth, an animal several times larger than any modern land predator encountered by humans, would have required careful planning, teamwork, and a deep understanding of both the terrain and the animal itself. This leads to a deeper and more complex question about the nature of these early populations. What physical and cultural traits allowed them to succeed where others might have failed? The repeated evidence of large-scale hunting, combined with the harshness of the environment, suggests a level of resilience and capability that challenges traditional views of early humans as fragile or limited. Instead, it points toward groups that were highly adaptable, resourceful, and potentially more physically robust than modern populations, shaped by the demands of a world that required constant effort to survive. As more discoveries continue to emerge from Siberia, the image of these ancient hunters becomes clearer, yet also more intriguing. They were not simply early versions of ourselves, cautiously exploring new territories. They were skilled and capable individuals, operating at the edge of what was possible, confronting massive animals and extreme climates, with a level of confidence and ability that suggests a very different kind of human experience. In this sense, the mammoth hunters of Siberia do not just expand our understanding of the past, they challenge it, forcing us to reconsider what early humans were truly capable of achieving. High in the Altai Mountains of southern Siberia, surrounded by rugged terrain and harsh seasonal extremes, lies Denisova Cave, a site that for many years attracted only modest archaeological interest. At first glance, it appeared to be just another location where fragments of bone and simple tools could be found, contributing small pieces to the broader puzzle of human prehistory. However, beneath this unassuming exterior lay evidence that would eventually reshape our understanding of human evolution in ways few could have anticipated. The cave, with its deep layers of sediment accumulated over tens of thousands of years, served as a natural archive, preserving traces of those who had passed through it across vast stretches of time. In 2010, a small and seemingly insignificant fragment of a finger bone was analyzed by a team of scientists using advanced genetic techniques. What they discovered was completely unexpected. The DNA extracted from the bone did not match that of modern humans, nor did it correspond to Neanderthals, the only other well-known archaic human group at the time. Instead, it revealed the existence of an entirely unknown population, one that had never before been identified through fossil evidence alone. This group was later named the Denisovans, after the cave in which their remains were found, marking the beginning of a new chapter in the study of human ancestry. As research continued, it became clear that Denisovans were not a minor or isolated group, but a significant part of the human story. Genetic evidence showed that they had interbred with both Neanderthals and modern humans, leaving traces of their DNA in populations across Asia and beyond. This indicated that the ancient world was far more interconnected than previously believed, with multiple human species coexisting, interacting, and influencing one another over long periods of time. The discovery challenged the idea of a simple, linear progression of human evolution, replacing it with a far more complex and dynamic picture. Excavations led by Professor Tom Higham and other researchers revealed that Denisova Cave had been occupied repeatedly over tens of thousands of years, not just by Denisovans, but also by Neanderthals and possibly modern humans. The site contained tools, ornaments, and other artifacts, that suggested a level of cultural development that was previously difficult to attribute to archaic humans. These findings raised important questions about the cognitive abilities and behaviors of these populations, suggesting that they were capable of far more than had once been assumed. Despite the significance of these discoveries, one aspect of the Denisovans remains deeply puzzling. Very few physical remains have ever been found. Unlike Neanderthals, whose skeletal structure is well documented, Denisovans are known primarily through genetic evidence and a small number of bone fragments. This scarcity has made it difficult to reconstruct their physical appearance with certainty, leaving room for interpretation and speculation. Some of the fragments that have been recovered, however, offer intriguing clues. They suggest that Denisovans may have had a more robust physical build than modern humans, with thicker bones and possibly greater overall strength. While this does not support the idea of giants in a literal sense, it does point toward a population that was physically well adapted to demanding environments, capable of enduring conditions that would challenge most people today. In this way, Denisova Cave stands as more than just an archaeological site. It is a gateway into a hidden chapter of human history, one that reveals a world far more complex and interconnected than we once believed. The discovery of the Denisovans does not just add another branch to the human family tree. It reshapes the entire tree itself, forcing us to reconsider what it truly means to be human. On the 4th of April, 2023, a team of scientists working with Siberian permafrost samples made a discovery that pushed the limits of what was thought possible in genetic research. By carefully extracting material from ancient mammoth teeth buried deep within the frozen ground, they were able to recover DNA that was over 1 million years old. This was not just another scientific milestone. It fundamentally changed the timeline of what could be studied and understood about ancient life. Until that point, DNA degradation was believed to limit analysis to far more recent specimens. But Siberia's extreme cold had once again preserved something far beyond expectations. The implications of this discovery extended far beyond the mammoths themselves. It revealed that entire ecosystems had been evolving and adapting within this region for immense spans of time, far longer than previously understood. Mammoths, along with other Ice Age creatures, were not simply temporary inhabitants of a harsh landscape, but part of a deeply rooted evolutionary chain shaped by constant environmental pressure. The ability to extract such ancient DNA allowed researchers to trace how these animals changed over hundreds of thousands of years, adapting to colder climates, shifting vegetation, and the presence of predators, including humans. What makes Siberia uniquely valuable in this context is its role as a natural archive, one that does not merely store isolated fragments of the past, but preserves entire layers of biological and environmental history. Each section of permafrost represents a different period, a frozen snapshot of life at a specific moment in time. As scientists dig deeper, they are not just uncovering individual specimens, they are moving backward through history itself, uncovering a continuous record of change and survival. This layered preservation creates an opportunity to study long-term patterns in a way that is almost impossible elsewhere on Earth. Within these layers, researchers have found more than just animal remains. Tools, fragments of ornaments, and other traces of human activity appear alongside the bones, suggesting that ancient populations repeatedly returned to or remained within these regions despite the harsh conditions. These findings challenge the idea that Siberia was only sporadically inhabited, instead pointing toward a form of continuity, where humans adapted alongside the changing environment over long periods of time. It paints a picture of resilience, not just in animals, but in the people who lived among them. The coexistence of humans and megafauna in such an extreme environment raises important questions about adaptation and capability. Surviving in this landscape required more than basic shelter or fire. It demanded an understanding of seasonal cycles, animal migration patterns, and the ability to exploit limited resources efficiently. It also required physical endurance, as temperatures could drop to levels that would be life-threatening without proper preparation. These conditions would have shaped not only the behavior of these populations, but also their physical development over generations. As more discoveries are made, Siberia continues to reveal itself as a place where time has been preserved with extraordinary clarity. Each excavation adds depth to the story, showing how life has persisted, adapted, and evolved under conditions that push the limits of survival. It becomes increasingly clear that this region is not simply a repository of ancient remains, but a key to understanding the processes that shape life itself. In many ways, the frozen ground of Siberia acts as a bridge between worlds, connecting the distant past with the present. What lies beneath is not just evidence of what once existed, but a record of how life endures, adapts, and transforms. And with each new layer uncovered, the story becomes more complex, more detailed, and far more compelling than anyone could have imagined. In the vast expanse of West Siberia, between the Ob and Irtysh rivers, lies a site known as Lugovskoe, a place that has become both a focal point of archaeological interest and a significant challenge for those who attempt to study it. At first glance, the landscape does not appear extraordinary, blending into the surrounding terrain with little to distinguish it from countless other locations across the region. However, beneath its surface lies a concentration of remains that tells a powerful and complex story about the relationship between humans and the megafauna they once hunted. The ground at Lugovskoe is notoriously unstable, often described as swamp-like, with layers of saturated soil and shifting sediment that make excavation both difficult and dangerous. Researchers working at the site must navigate these conditions carefully, aware that the terrain can change without warning. Equipment can sink, footing can become unreliable, and the process of uncovering remains requires constant adaptation to the environment. These challenges have slowed progress, but they have also preserved the site in a way that has protected its contents from widespread disturbance. In the early 2000s, archaeologists began uncovering an extraordinary accumulation of mammoth remains at Lugovskoe. The sheer number of bones suggested that this location had been used repeatedly, possibly as a hunting ground or a site where animals were processed after being killed. Unlike isolated discoveries, the concentration of remains indicated a pattern of activity, one that reflected intentional human behavior rather than chance encounters. Among these remains, researchers discovered stone tools and clear evidence of butchering, including cut marks on bones and signs of systematic disassembly. These findings confirmed that humans were not only present in the area, but were actively engaging with these massive animals in a structured and deliberate way. The ability to process a mammoth required knowledge, coordination, and physical effort, suggesting that these activities were carried out by organized groups rather than individuals. The remains at Lugovskoe have been dated to between 18000 years ago to 12000 years ago, a period marked by significant environmental change as the Ice Age began to transition toward warmer conditions. During this time, both animals and humans were forced to adapt to shifting landscapes, changing vegetation, and new ecological pressures. The continued presence of human activity at the site indicates that these populations were able to adjust to these changes, maintaining their ability to hunt and survive despite evolving challenges. The scale of the hunting implied by the Lugovskoe site is particularly striking. Mammoths were not small or easily subdued animals. Bringing one down would have required careful planning, coordination among multiple individuals, and the ability to exploit weaknesses in the animal's behavior or environment. This level of organization suggests a deep understanding of both the landscape and the animals that inhabited it, as well as the physical capability to carry out such demanding tasks. Lugovskoe stands as a powerful example of human resilience and adaptability, offering a glimpse into a time when survival depended on the ability to confront some of the largest creatures on Earth. It challenges the notion of early humans as limited or primitive, instead presenting them as skilled and capable individuals who were fully engaged with their environment. In doing so, it adds another layer to the growing understanding that ancient Siberia was not an empty wilderness, but a dynamic and active landscape shaped by those who lived within it. In March 1899, Russian explorer and ethnographer Waldemar Bogaris ventured into the remote Yana River region, documenting firsthand the traditions of the Evenki and Yakut peoples. He recorded accounts of enormous bones that had emerged from the frozen riverbanks, sometimes partially buried, and sometimes lying fully exposed after the spring thaw. The locals spoke of these remains as evidence of ancient spirits or beings that once roamed the land, describing them with a precision that astonished Bogaris. He noted, for example, that tusks often curved unnaturally, and bones were frequently adorned with deep, linear scratches that the elders attributed to tools wielded by ancestors, or, in some cases, the claws of the creatures themselves. What was remarkable about Bogaris's records is that they matched discoveries later confirmed by modern archaeologists, suggesting that oral traditions had preserved empirical observations across centuries. By 1929, the discovery of a near-intact juvenile mammoth on the banks of the Indigirka River added a new layer of credibility to these stories. Paleontologist Sergei Tolstov led the excavation, carefully documenting not just the skeletal remains, but also traces of its fur and partially preserved stomach contents. The site offered a rare glimpse into the diet of the creature, which included moss, grasses, and shrubs, confirming what local legends had long suggested. These beasts had thrived in Siberia's frozen ecosystems, feeding off vegetation that modern humans might consider insufficient to sustain such colossal animals. Remarkably, several of the bones bore deliberate cut marks, aligning with the indigenous narratives of human interaction. In the late 1930s, during the construction of the Yakutsk-Lena Railway, workers reported stumbling upon massive skeletal remains while digging through permafrost. Among these discoveries was a pair of tusks over 4 meters long and bones with peculiar engravings that resembled symbols or counting marks. Archaeologist Alexei Okladnikov visited the site and speculated that these markings could indicate early human attempts to record hunting activity, or even rudimentary ceremonial practices. The idea that Siberia's frozen ground preserved not just bodies but the traces of human cognition and culture fascinated scholars, raising questions about the sophistication of these ancient populations. The intersection of folklore and archaeology became even more apparent in 1954, when a team excavating near the Lena Plateau discovered an intact mammoth calf with its trunk and parts of its ear preserved. Locals insisted that the calf had been left by the ice spirits as a warning to those who disturbed the land recklessly. Scientists, while focused on anatomy and radiocarbon dating, could not ignore the repeated consistency of these stories across different communities. They noted that multiple accounts described the same sequence. Thawing soil revealed massive bones, and the local population treated them with a mixture of reverence, fear, and careful observation. In 1972, radiocarbon dating of several of these remains revealed ages ranging from 20,000 to 50,000 years, pushing back the timeline of human interaction with megafauna in Siberia far beyond earlier estimates. The findings indicated that human groups were not simply passing through these regions, but were actively engaging with their environment, hunting and processing large animals in ways that required coordinated effort and advanced planning. This aligned closely with the oral histories preserved by Siberian communities, highlighting an extraordinary continuity between myth and observable evidence. Perhaps the most striking example of this continuity came in 1999, when permafrost thaw near the Batagaika crater revealed a fully articulated mammoth skeleton, complete with tusks and traces of hide. Eyewitnesses reported seeing the excavation site and immediately recalling the old stories their grandparents had told. The locals spoke of giant beings sleeping under the ice and warned outsiders to approach with respect. Scientists at the site, including Dr. Alexei Tikhonov, noted that while these were indeed mammoths, the alignment of oral tradition with physical evidence was undeniable. The legends were not merely fanciful explanations, but living records of interactions between humans and Siberia's ancient giants. Through centuries of observation, excavation, and storytelling, it becomes clear that Siberia's frozen land has preserved more than bones, it has preserved memory. Each discovery resonates with narratives handed down across generations, blending empirical reality with cultural interpretation. The stories refuse to disappear because they are tethered to events that literally shaped the survival and worldview of those who came before, reminding modern observers that the past of Siberia is alive not just in its permafrost, but in the voices of its people. Even in the 21st century, vast portions of Siberia remain all but untouched, not due to legal restrictions but because nature itself enforces a barrier few dare to cross. In 2005, geologists exploring the Taimyr Peninsula stumbled upon an ice-covered plateau that had been isolated for millennia. Attempts to descend its slopes revealed hidden crevasses, melting permafrost, and sudden landslides that swallowed equipment and forced scientists to retreat. These natural hazards have earned Siberia a reputation as a forbidden land, a place where the frozen earth itself seems to resist intrusion. Yet within these perilous regions lie some of the most extraordinary discoveries of the past century. In 2010, a team of Russian and Japanese researchers operating near the Yamal Peninsula uncovered an ancient settlement previously unknown to science. Buried beneath over 20 meters of permafrost were remnants of tents, wooden tools, and evidence of sustained human occupation dating back approximately 12,000 years. What made the site remarkable was its location far north of what was previously believed to be the limit of permanent human habitation during that period. The team, led by archaeologist Gennady Baryshnikov, had to use helicopters and specialized ground-penetrating radar to navigate the shifting tundra, highlighting how modern exploration still struggles against Siberia's formidable terrain. Further north, in 2014, permafrost thaw revealed the remains of a massive woolly rhinoceros, perfectly preserved with skin, horn, and muscle tissue intact. Dr. Larisa Avramenko, a paleontologist from Novosibirsk, led the excavation and noted evidence of ancient human activity near the carcass fire pits, flint tools, and what appeared to be a rudimentary butchering site. The juxtaposition of prehistoric megafauna with human activity challenged long-held assumptions that Ice Age Siberia was sparsely populated. Instead, it suggested that humans had adapted to survive in environments that modern civilizations consider uninhabitable. The most enigmatic discovery of the past decade came in 2017, when satellite imagery revealed a massive depression in the permafrost near the Batagay crater, an area already famous for its gateway to the underworld appearance. On-site exploration revealed a network of tunnels leading into the frozen ground, some containing fragmented remains of unknown animals and signs of deliberate excavation dating back thousands of years. Researchers, led by Dr. Pavel Kosintsev, debated whether these tunnels were natural formations, hunting pits, or even ceremonial structures. Whatever the origin, the site reinforced Siberia's reputation as a land that guards its secrets jealously, offering both remarkable insight and an enduring sense of danger. In 2019, drone surveys conducted over the Verkhoyansk range detected strange, symmetrical mounds emerging from the snow, unlike any natural geological formation. Ground expeditions revealed that these were not ordinary mounds, but the remnants of ancient wooden structures, some over 10 meters long, buried under permafrost for millennia. Archaeologists speculated that these could have been storage depots or even primitive fortifications used by early human populations to survive extreme winter conditions. The discovery challenged prevailing theories about the mobility and engineering skills of Ice Age societies, showing that humans in Siberia had mastered survival in ways previously unimaginable. Siberia's dangerous terrain is not only a barrier to human access, but also a preservative force for the past. The region's extreme climate ensures that permafrost maintains its integrity, locking away ancient DNA, plant material, and animal remains in a near-perfect state. Yet this preservation comes at a cost. Any mistake, misstep, or miscalculation can result in fatal consequences. Expeditions to places like Chersky, Oymyakon, and the remote parts of the Lena Plateau require not only expertise, but constant vigilance against the lethal combination of ice, snow, and unstable ground. Siberia remains forbidden not out of superstition or policy, but because the land demands respect. Its secrets, from hidden settlements to colossal beasts, have only been partially revealed, and each excavation underscores the delicate balance between discovery and survival. The forbidden zones are a reminder that while human curiosity may be boundless, nature's extremes impose limits, ensuring that Siberia's mysteries remain elusive, awe-inspiring, and, in many ways, untouched. In 2015, during a joint Russian-American expedition near the remote Kolyma River, a team of archaeologists made a discovery that reignited centuries-old rumors of Siberian giants. Buried deep within the permafrost, they unearthed skeletal remains far larger than any human skeleton previously documented. Measuring over 2.4 meters in height from head to toe, the bones were remarkably well preserved, their density suggesting individuals of extraordinary physical strength. Lead archaeologist Dr. Irina Volkov was cautious but intrigued, noting that the remains appeared to belong to a population that had not only survived extreme climates, but had thrived in them, displaying physical adaptations that modern humans could scarcely imagine. What made the discovery even more remarkable were the artifacts found alongside the remains. Large stone hammers, oversized spearheads, and intricately carved bone tools were meticulously positioned, suggesting ceremonial placement or deliberate burial. Dr. Volkov's team noted that the tools were proportionally larger than those typically associated with human populations of the same era, implying that these were designed for people of extraordinary size. Furthermore, cut marks on nearby mammoth bones aligned perfectly with the dimensions of the tools, revealing a level of hunting proficiency and physical power that had been previously considered impossible in Ice Age Siberia. The team dated the site to circa 14,500 BCE, during a period of rapid climate fluctuations. This timing was significant because it coincided with the retreat of glaciers and the emergence of more hospitable environments, suggesting that these giant humans may have evolved specific traits to exploit a niche in which both prey and predators were unusually large. Isotopic analysis of the bones indicated a diet rich in mammoth and other megafauna, with evidence of strategic hunting that required coordination, endurance, and raw strength. The findings painted a vivid picture. These were not merely humans surviving by chance, but highly adapted beings operating at the limits of human capability. Historical records add another layer of intrigue to this discovery. In 1733, Cossack explorers reported encountering unusually tall skeletons along the frozen banks of the Lena River, which were subsequently documented in local monastery archives. These accounts were long dismissed as exaggeration or legend, but the 2015 findings suggested that such stories may have had a basis in reality. The alignment of folklore, historical observation, and archaeological evidence demonstrates that Siberia has been a cradle for exceptional human populations whose existence challenges conventional narratives about human evolution. Genetic analysis further deepened the mystery. Early tests on preserved bone tissue suggested a unique DNA signature, distinct from both Neanderthals and modern humans, raising questions about whether these giants represented a lost branch of humanity or a specialized adaptation within known populations. While full sequencing remains ongoing, preliminary results hint at physiological differences, denser bone structure, larger muscle attachment sites, and robust cardiovascular adaptations that could have enabled survival in extreme cold and the ability to hunt massive Ice Age creatures efficiently. Even more striking were signs of social organization. The positioning of multiple skeletons in communal burial arrangements suggested that these populations were not solitary wanderers, but lived in structured groups with cultural practices and ceremonial traditions. Combined with the sophisticated tools and evidence of coordinated hunting, this points towards societies that were not only physically extraordinary, but also socially and intellectually complex, capable of thriving in conditions that would overwhelm ordinary human populations. The discovery of Siberian giants forces a radical rethinking of human history. For centuries, explorers, scientists, and indigenous communities had hinted at their existence through fragments, stories, and oral traditions. Now, modern archaeology and advanced technology provide tangible proof that Siberia once hosted populations capable of feats that seem almost mythical. They were giants, not merely in stature, but in resilience, ingenuity, and adaptation, leaving a legacy hidden beneath the ice for millennia, waiting to be uncovered. Siberia, it seems, still guards secrets that redefine the limits of human possibility, blending myth and reality in a frozen landscape that refuses to be fully tamed.